Are you ready to take bold action and live a life of brilliance? Welcome to the Bold and Brilliant podcast, where women leaders share inspiring stories about bold decisions that shaped their lives and their businesses. Today, I'm bringing you an episode straight from my heart. Let's talk about how to put more life in your life. Welcome to the Bold and Brilliant podcast. The idea of putting more life into your life is something that came to me in the last year. As we think about how we want to grow our businesses and increase our impact or build our connections to others, what about us? What about putting more life into your life, more of yourself into your life? I've got 4 ideas that I want to share with you today that have to do with you and how you can allow yourself to show up for yourself. Because when you allow yourself to make decisions that help you grow and achieve the things that you are dreaming about, we're way more likely to not only go after them with excitement and energy and motivation, but we're also way more likely to enjoy the process. Almost 15 years ago, my first husband passed away. He was first diagnosed with cancer shortly after our first child was born. And over the next 4 years, he fought bravely while we learned how to be parents, while we figured out how to help him get the care that he needed, while I was working full time and he was caring for the kids as much as he possibly could. That was our dream, for him to be the stay-at-home dad. I was working out as the breadwinner. Nobody expects that to happen when you're in your 40s. But Paul passed away at age 47, leaving me alone with our 2 preschoolers. The next year and a half were a blur. I don't even remember a lot of what happened. I don't remember a lot of what I was feeling at the time. The fog is a real thing. Anyone who's gone through a major grief process knows that the things that happen, you don't even remember them. I think that's God's way of telling us that it's a process we have to go through, but we don't have to dwell on it in the future. What I knew coming out of that fog of grief is that I needed to figure out a way to be the parent to our kids that Paul and I always dreamed of, to give them the life of fulfillment and adventure and new places and new things and new ideas and new people, of at the same time having the support and encouragement of our very close-knit families. Unfortunately, living in California, we were far away from most of our family. He was from the New Orleans area and my family had moved to Florida. So while we were in touch, I didn't have the day-to-day support and my children didn't have the day-to-day community of having family nearby. So I realized that what I needed to do was figure out how to shift from the life that we had been building in California to a life that would allow me to be a present parent, to be available to them. And that really required a much more of a support structure. At the same time, I knew that the survival mode that I had been in for several years was not sustainable. I needed to start taking better care of myself so that I would be well and healthy for those kids as they grew up. This was when I found coaching. I found a health coach that helped me learn how to prioritize my health, my well-being, my thoughts and beliefs and mindset so that I could imagine what the future could look like. I had left my corporate job and decided that coaching was the way that I could navigate my own future while taking care of myself, being present for my family, and also being able to move from California across the country to Florida, where my family was living. It was an amazing time. I love a good adventure, but I didn't always know what I was doing. What I found through coaching was my passion for helping. What I found through coaching was the realization that I had been doing it all along. My whole corporate career was about helping people manage change, to understand what was needed for things to be better for their company, for their department, for their own work life. And in a personal life, the skills were often very much the same. Having a positive growth mindset, deciding that you could see the good in a situation that might not be obviously showing it on the outside. So as I left corporate America and began this journey to become an entrepreneur, to learn how to be a coach and to support people with my own business instead of as an employee for someone else, it really became an opportunity to understand myself better, to see how every failure was a learning opportunity, and to see how the decisions that I made helped create the path that we were going down at the time. So when things go as you don't expect, the best thing we can do is to pause and say, the best thing we can do is to pause and say, yeah, this isn't going the way that I expected it to go. But what can I get out of it anyway? One of the big keys I put in place not long after this season was realizing that the word should is a very challenging way to live. When we think that things should be a certain way, we are setting an expectation that if things don't go that way, we will be disappointed, we will lose, we will not be happy. And in life, there's lots of things that don't go the way we expect them to go. If you can turn the idea of they should have happened differently to it did happen differently, now what? It's a lot easier to look at that event and respond differently so that you can then have the outcome that is more aligned with what you're trying to accomplish. I had this great loss in my life, this whole situation that I had no idea was going to happen, and I certainly never planned for it. But we all have things that happen in our lives that are not what we expect. And when we can decide to respond to them in a way that allows us to grow, we're a lot more likely to not only enjoy the process, but to be able to continue to grow as we move along in life. Another piece of this story, which is our second point today, is about allowing yourself to say yes to the things that you want out of life. There's a great book by Shonda Rhimes called The Year of Yes. I listened to this book about 6, 7 years, maybe 8 years ago. I can specifically remember with my headphones on, walking to the coffee shop, as I often do, listening to her read. I can picture the street corner that I was standing on when I said to myself, this book is changing everything. It changed everything for her. She was reading the book and telling this story of how she decided to be a yes for things that made her uncomfortable or things that she in the past had not enjoyed doing, but she knew could be important to her future and how it would unfold. When we can say yes to ourselves, to the things that we know will be good for us, to the things that we know will matter, we get to step out of the regular day-to-day grind and try new things. Now, what happens when we take risks? You've heard the phrase, you win or you lose, right? If you take a risk and it doesn't go the way you expect, we're still talking about unmet expectations. Either it goes better, which is great, or if it doesn't go better, if it doesn't go the way you had hoped, maybe it is still better. Or maybe there's just, wow, that didn't turn out the way I thought. What could I do differently next time? How could I change this up? What am I going to learn from this process? No matter what, every experience that we have is a learning experience. This is how humans are designed. This is evolution and like how we get smarter. You try to learn something and it goes great or it doesn't go great. And what happens? Well, you still learn something. Either you learned how not to do it. What's the idea about took 10,000 tries to create a light bulb, but really he didn't fail 10,000 times. He learned 9,909 ways to not make a light bulb. What if you applied that to everything that you do? Think about if you're an entrepreneur like me and you have a sales process. Well, what if things aren't going your way and you're not enrolling people or having the sales that you hoped to have? What could you do differently? What are you doing that is working? What are you doing that is working, but maybe just not coming to fruition yet? And what are you doing that maybe isn't working and you could tweak it? Don't turn the corner too quickly. Give it a shot for a while. Because if it's just new, then maybe it just needs a little time for you to get in the groove. But if you're saying yes to what you know is for you, you can't be wrong. And the energy you bring to a conversation with that kind of thought process, when you're like, I know this is the way I want to show up. It's the way I am best suited to support people, to create whatever it is you're trying to create. When you know it's right, say yes to that process so that you can continue down that road. When you are aligned with the process, body, mind, spirit, like it feels right, just keep going. Sometimes you got to get in that groove. Sometimes you have to figure out what it is that, the other piece to this is listen to your gut. Because if you are doing what you think you should do, but it doesn't feel right, this happened to me last year. I was creating this whole program thing and I felt like it was the thing I was supposed to be doing with my coaching business and it just never felt right. As soon as I allowed myself to tell myself that this just isn't feeling right, how can I adjust it so that I can be a yes for sharing it with other people so that I'm really excited about it? All of a sudden things took off. I encourage you to listen to your inner voice, to your gut, and say yes to yourself, to put more life into your life. All right, now we're getting to our third point. And if you already know me, you know that I have the Gather community around me. We've been in place for almost 5 years now. This is one of the hugest gifts of my life. And honestly, we go back to having a growth mindset and seeing what's good of things that don't go your way. The Gather community was 100% created out of the pandemic. If you haven't listened to the episode from the Gather community, I encourage you to listen to that episode because it tells the story of how the Gather community came to be. The basics of what the Gather community is: a community of women leaders, entrepreneurs, and women in business supporting each other. My role is to create events for people to connect, be seen, for teachers to teach, listeners to listen, and learners to learn, and for everyone to leverage those relationships to grow. The power of community helps you put more life into your life. If I didn't have the desire to bring women together, the Gather community wouldn't exist. I didn't know that's what I was trying to create 6 years ago when I thought of the idea. But as it evolved and as I continued to say yes to what we were creating and to allow it to evolve, to recognize what was going great and what wasn't going so great, and how could we shift and tweak and adjust year over year to grow this company and this community into what it has become, it allows you to realize the power of community. Helps you to realize that we are not designed to do life alone. And to put more life into your life, I absolutely 100% believe that we are required to include other people. If you are an introvert, that's okay. You still have people. It just shows up differently for you. If you are the kind of person who decides I have to do it myself, I encourage you to examine that. Often that is a fear-based thought, the fear of losing control, the fear of not believing in yourself and therefore not believing in others. Take a look at how you can leverage your community to support you as you grow in your life and in your business, because the power of community will absolutely change your life when you allow it to, when you are a yes to it and therefore a yes to yourself. The fourth point I want to make today is that bold action creates more life. Think of a day that you decide to not do a whole lot, kind of lay on the sofa, maybe stay in your pajamas. This is not saying that a day of self-care is not okay. Of course it is. And if you choose to have a day of total chill and do nothing, that's totally fine. One of the things that happened to some of us during the pandemic was that we stayed in our pajamas all day long, day after day, never really got regular clothes on, never really put regular shoes on. We never went out. The lockdown in California was for real. One of the things that happens when you don't put on regular clothes is you kind of are in that relaxing, I'm not really motivated, I'm just going to chill kind of place. There's an author that I listened to a lot at that point. He had some really good insights. His name is John Acuff. He's an author who writes a lot about goal setting and goal getting, which is, things that I love teaching about as well. And one of the things he said was no one really got where they wanted to go when they were still wearing their pajamas. On the other side of the lockdown and the pandemic, maybe that's not entirely true anymore, but it was that shift from regular life to cocooning that we had all gone through. It becomes difficult to take action when you're always in a relaxed state. We were in that a lot at the beginning of the lockdown. But if we make decisions that will serve our growth and take action on those decisions, you absolutely can put more life into your life. For me, I'll use this as an example. I am actually fully dressed with real shoes on today. I will say it is fuzzy socks and Birkenstocks, but it's at least not my slippers. And it's not my pajama pants, business on the top, pajamas on the bottom. Not today. Today is a real clothing day. Not every day is like that. Sometimes you'll see me and you have no idea whether I still have my pajama pants on at the bottom or not. But that's okay, because it's all about the decisions that you make. When we recognize that the decisions that we make in our mind are irregardless of how we're dressed, then we can continue to move forward. And we just weren't there at the beginning of the pandemic. And now things adjusted a little bit. What is the point of all of this? When you make clear, decisive, bold action, whether it's for your business or personal growth, you're a lot more likely to live a vibrant, purpose-driven life filled with opportunities and therefore success, because the action that you take that is, bold, getting out of your comfort zone, taking the steps maybe you haven't taken before, leveraging your community, deciding to say yes to yourself, and also looking at what hasn't gone your way and deciding to do things differently. These are all things that will create more life in your life. In closing, I want to remind you that you can absolutely take control of your own life, your own narrative, and infuse more passion and joy into your life. There is no reason why you cannot get those dreams that you're dreaming about. I tell people this during workshops that I've taught. This is a window to my right. And at the top of this window, I wrote something in my own handwriting. It's now painted in. And it says, "You are worthy of the dreams you dream." The world is waiting for you to show up today. I wrote that in a moment where I needed to be reminded that I am worthy, that the dreams I'm dreaming are for me, and that the community I'm building around me and the people in my life are there for a reason. When I put more life in my life, it means I'm engaging with those people, saying yes to them and to myself, and deciding together that the world is a better place for all of us because we are connected and moving forward. I encourage you to use these tips today. Put more life in your life. As a result, you're going to find yourself feeling more bold and brilliant every day. We'll see you soon. Ciao. Thank you for listening to the Bold and Brilliant podcast. I'm your host, Tracie Root, and I want to invite you to check out the show notes, find out where you can connect with our guests, find out more about what I and the Gather community have to offer you, and be sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform. Thanks so much.